In the previous video, we talked about linear regression. There, given an input value, the model predicts an output that's continuous, like predicting someone's weight or the price of a house. But what if we don't want a continuous output? What if we have only two possible outcomes, like true or false, 0 or 1, yes or no? In such cases, we can't just draw a straight line through the data. Instead, we need a curve that can separate these two categories properly. Take a look at this graph. Think of these yellow dots as probabilities of an event happening. Our job is to predict whether that event is likely to occur or not. To do this, we use something called a threshold. If the predicted probability is above this threshold, we say yes or 1. If it's below, we say no or 0. And this threshold is not a fixed value. You can adjust it depending on your application. The curve you are seeing right now is called the sigmoid function, and it looks like this. Now, look carefully at how the shape of the curve changes when we change the input x. If x is large, the curve becomes steeper, almost like a sudden cliff. If x is small, the curve flattens out. When x goes to infinity, the function output approaches 1. When x is 0, the function outputs 0.5, right in the middle. And when x goes to negative infinity, the output tends towards 0. Notice something important here. The output range is always between 0 and 1. That's exactly why we use it. It gives us a probability estimate. So, we use this to calculate a probability of an event happening based on our input features. Then, we use a threshold to help us decide whether to say yes or no. Now, we don't just feed the input feature x directly into the sigmoid function. Instead, we first multiply it by a value called weight, usually denoted as w. This weight tells us how strongly x influences the model's prediction. If x has a big impact, w will be a larger value. If x is not very important, w will be smaller. The bias term b ensures that even if the wx term is 0, there will still be some output. The model doesn't just collapse to 0. You can think of the bias as a way to shift the entire sigmoid curve left or right along the x-axis. Graphically, on z-x-axis, the weight w controls the slope of that line. A higher value of w makes the line steeper, while a smaller value makes it flatter. The bias b acts as the intercept, meaning it decides where the line crosses the z-axis when x is 0. After this linear transformation, we then pass the value through the sigmoid function to squash it between 0 and 1. This is what converts the raw linear score into a probability. And while training the model on our dataset, we adjust or tune the parameters w and b. We do this over and over again across all the data points so that the sigmoid curve fits the data as well as possible. Now let's talk about the loss function we use in logistic regression. In our training dataset, y represents the actual output. It's always either 0 or 1. On the other hand, y hat is the predicted output from our model, which is a probability value between 0 and 1. Sometimes this y hat is represented as p, but it doesn't really matter whether you call it y hat or p. The idea is the same. In linear regression, we used to calculate the loss by taking the squared difference between the predicted and actual values. But here's the catch. If we try to use that in logistic regression, the loss function becomes non-convex. This means it can get stuck at local minima rather than finding the true global minimum. We need a function that is convex, so that algorithms like gradient descent can reliably find the global minimum. Now look at these two equations. If y is 1, the loss is given by minus log y hat. This might sound abstract, but just look at the graph. If the predicted value is close to 1, the loss approaches 0, which makes sense since the prediction matches the actual value. But if the predicted value moves closer to 0, the loss routes towards infinity, meaning the model did a terrible job. Similarly, for the second equation, if y is 0, the loss is minus log 1 minus y hat. In this case, if the predicted probability is close to 0, the loss is small. Perfect. But if the predicted probability creeps up towards 1, the loss approaches infinity. When you combine these two cases into one single formula, you get the binary cross entropy loss function, also called log loss. If you're feeling lost, try plugging in y equals 1 and y equals 2 one at a time. You'll get exactly the two expressions. Then we calculate this loss for every data point and take the average. And that gives us the cost function. Here m represents the total number of data points. And by the way, when we calculate the loss for just one data point, we call it the loss function. When we average it over the entire dataset, it's called the cost function. These terms are often used interchangeably in practice, so don't get too hung up on the naming. The core idea is what really matters. We use gradient descent to minimize this cost function. Basically, we iteratively update the parameters w and b step by step until the loss is as low as possible. If you are not familiar with how gradient descent works, I will leave a link to a dedicated video on that topic in the description below. You can check it out and come back here fully armed with that knowledge. Next, let's look at this graph. Here, the y-axis represents the probability of getting a disease, and the x-axis shows the amount of cholesterol. This is just a simplified demo example. It's not medically accurate. Now imagine we have our training data plotted on this graph. We start by initializing some random parameters, those w's and b's. Then we calculate the cost function and iteratively update these parameters to minimize the loss. We keep tuning w's and b's step by step until the model learns the best fit for the data and the cost is as low as possible. Once the model is trained, we set a threshold to make our final classification. Let's say we have a new test data point. In this example, this new point lies below the threshold line, so we predict its class as 0, meaning no disease. And that's basically how logistic regression makes its predictions, by turning probabilities into simple yes or no decisions using a threshold. Now, everything we just discussed was for the case where there is only one feature, x. But what happens when we have more features like x1, x2 and all the way up to xn? In that case, the overall process is pretty much the same. The only difference is that instead of a single weight and bias, we now have a vector of weights and possibly a bias term. We still calculate the value of z, which now becomes a combination of all the features and their corresponding weights. And then we pass it through the sigmoid function as before. The cost function also stays similar in spirit, but it now accounts for all the dimensions together. Graphically speaking, with two features, the curve would look like this in a three-dimensional space. And for more than two features, it will be a hyperplane in higher dimension.